Hey, what's up? This is Jesse with Happy Homes. You know what they say? Buying a house is buying the American dream. However, I know after buying multiple houses and still remembering the first house I ever bought, and also helping hundreds of people, clients buy their first home, people buying their second home, third home, vacation homes, investment properties, I have a robust understanding of what the process is like in multiple different states. Yes, I am licensed in 3 different states and I have teams that operate in 11 different states. And the one thing I know is that not every market is the same. So I've scoured the internet and YouTube and really looked up and looked at a lot of different people's videos. And there's a lot of great information, but there is not a very robust, in depth process or information where you can go and search that covers almost every single topic. I wanted to bring you a real rich book of information. That way, if you're out searching for a home or thinking about buying a house, you'll know exactly where to start and what to expect through that process, because it can be something that can be a very enjoyable experience, but it can also be a very painful or disappointing experience based on how much preparation you put into this journey. So if you want to know exactly what it's like or even how to buy your first home, make sure you hit that like button and stay tuned. All right. So, first of all, I just want to say congratulations for even taking the steps to do the research, to go out and step foot into the first part of the process with home ownership. There's a lot of great things about owning a house. And you might be one of those people that just love renting. And maybe you're thinking about the times that you've spent all of your hard earned cash and paid someone else's mortgage for them. Now, I can tell you that sometimes it is cheaper to live in a rental versus buying a house. But at the end of the day, that money isn't building equity, where buying a house, even if it costs a little bit more, you're actually putting your money into something that down the road you can turn around and then sell, hopefully for a profit. Now, I'm going to go through a robust list of information that I personally think can help you. Now, 95% of the business that I work with are buyers. So I know exactly what it's like. And during the crazy markets that we've had over the past couple of years, we were able to sell hundreds of homes working with buyers. So I'm talking about markets where we have multiple offers, crazy times, and also markets where it's very calm waters and it favors the buyers. So we're going to talk about inventory levels, what all that information means, and really what is some of the jargon and things that you might be hearing other real estate professionals talk about. We're going to cover all that in this video. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notepad here. I literally have 4 pages of information that you're going to find extremely helpful. Now, also, as we go along, drop comments. If you think there's something I'm saying that is completely off base, or you think I'm absolutely losing my marbles, make sure you comment on there. And something that can really help me and help the algorithm is hitting that like button as well. So without further ado, the first thing that you probably are thinking is, where do you even start, right? Do I call a real estate agent or do I call a lender? What is a lender? What is a real estate agent? Well, a real estate professional or a real estate agent, they're both professionals. The real estate agent is the person that's going to help you find the house, help you write the contracts, present the offer, oversee all the negotiations, all the inspections, all the contingencies, all the HOA docs, whatever it may be. They're the person that are basically going to be your guide through this process on the battlefield. Now, what the lender's job is they're the ones that are actually going to get you the loan so that way you can buy the house. So you ask yourself, what comes first, the horse or the carriage? And in this situation, it really just depends. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, it just depends what your situation is. And I'm going to tell you exactly why it depends. It depends because maybe you're a cash buyer and you don't even want to use a lender. So you're just like, I just need a real estate agent. However, I think finding a lender and also understanding what your position is in the marketplace best is suited to speak with the lender first. However, it sometimes is kind of difficult finding a lender, and a lot of real estate agents will have a preferred lender that they work with that they can refer you to. Actually, I know about 99.9% of agents have a preferred lender they will refer you to. Now, there's a couple different types of lending out there. The primary types of lenders that most people think about is the banks that they do their banking with. They think US Bank, Chase, credit unions, Wells Fargo, and those types of banks are what we call big institutional banks. And the thing is, what are those banks' primary concern? Those banks' primary concern is not real estate. That's a secondary concern for them. So some of the lenders that work inside of these big banks aren't even licensed mortgage professionals. You are on their timeline. And I'll tell you what, working inside the real estate industry, when you're representing sellers and a client comes and they have a pre-approval letter and it's from a big institutional bank like Wells Fargo, Chase, any of the Bank of America, you are automatically, your walls goes up and your red flags start to raise. Because the reason why is because we know that getting a hold of them is very difficult. And we also know that their primary concern is not getting your deal closed. So typically banks like that require longer amounts of time to get your loan closed. Now, they do work with a lot of clients just for the sheer fact that they handle a lot of people's finances, but you do not have to work with that type of bank. Now, the second type of banking that's out there is what we call internet banks. Those are banks like Quicken Loans, which is Rocket Mortgage, Guaranteed Rate, Navy Federal Credit Union, basically anything that shows up in your Facebook feed, your Instagram feeds, and they typically look like they have amazing rates. And what I'll tell you right now is no matter who you're working with, your rates are probably always going to be very, very similar. They might be within an eighth of a point difference, but what a lot of these internet banks like to do is they say the rates were at, say, 7%. They'll be advertising rates at 6%. So you're like, heck, they're giving a better 1% difference. And when you go through the process, what you start to realize is they're charging you a lot of money to get that rate down. And that's exactly what you can do at any bank. Any bank allows you to buy points down. It's actually a federally regulated discount system. So it doesn't matter what bank you work with, you can always buy points down. If you are out there shopping all the different banks and rates and whatnot, is what you can ask them is you can just say like, what's your base rate? And that's without buying any of the points down. And that's a good way to get a good comprehensive information of what you can understand. One of the downfalls with working with those banks is kind of like the big institutional banks that I just discussed, is these providers are typically working remote somewhere in America, and they're working with processors and underwriters, which are people that handle your loan, and they're not in the same location. So you might have your lender in one office in their bedroom somewhere in America. They send their processor that's handling the processing of the loan lives in another state. And then they have the underwriter that's going through and making sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed in another state. And they are not in a hurry to get loans closed. They say all the time, oh, we'll close loans in 12 days. That is absolutely false. They cannot close loans in 12 days. And typically when you're being rushed through the process in the system like that, it usually just leads to a disaster. Also, what a lot of people do as a consumer is they go onto these websites and they'll get a pre-approval letter, and it doesn't even verify information. So the information that you might be getting from these banks might not even be the information that you're working with could be valid. It's absolutely chaos, in my opinion. And this is why agents, and primarily real estate agents, will ask you, are you fully approved or are you pre-approved? What's the difference? Well, fully approved means that bank has actually put you all the way through underwriting, so they know your loan will close. They verified income. They verified your credit score. They made sure all your debt to income ratios are good to go, right? So the third type of banking that's out there is what we call full service mortgage lenders. These are companies that you may or may not have heard of. They typically don't have big storefronts, but these are the type of lenders that most real estate professionals work with, and they are only paid when the deal closes. The big banks and the internet bankers are typically being paid a salary plus a bonus. The full service mortgage lenders are only being paid if they close the loan. These are banks or mortgage companies like Fairway Lending, Caliber Home Loans, Express Mortgage or Mortgage Express, Academy Mortgage, Guild Lending, and there's a bunch of different ones. But these people are typically very, very hands-on They typically work with you in advance to make sure your credit score is in a great position and to put yourself in the best position moving forward. They typically also work in collaboration with the agent. So when you do get to the point in time where you need to put in your offer, they're typically calling the listing agent on the behalf of you as well, making sure, hey, I'm working with Jesse. He's an amazing borrower. I've already verified proof of funds. I've verified that he's got money in the bank. I've verified his credit score. I've verified his income. His W-2 history is great. We get this deal under contract. You have a very, very good buyer on your hands. I work with a lot of sellers too. And a lot of times their banker never even calls me. I literally just put a deal under contract this week and the buyer's lender never called me. I called him and left a message, never heard from him. It's one of those things where I have to take the information at hand and do my best investigating to read the documents that they provided and also talk to the agent and just understand how long have they been working with this lender. Have they gone through full approval? Have they had any other deals under contract? Has anything terminated? Do you foresee anything changing? In this situation, the borrower's credit actually got better. And this is the other thing and why working with the lender in advance is good is because a lot of people go out shopping without understanding where they sit with their credit. And if you have a situation where you need to improve your credit score so you get a better interest rate or you get lower mortgage insurance and you go to buy a house and you realize that that stuff isn't in tip-top condition and you can't buy the house or the price is way out of your league, it can create a really disappointing situation. So this is why we always advise people to work in advance with their lenders. Also, as interest rates change over time, your lender should be reaching out to you and telling you how your affordability is changing. And if you want to keep affording the same value of home, your payment's going to go up if interest rates go up, That's pretty much the information in the down low on choosing what do you want to work with first, a real estate agent or a lender. Also, when it comes to real estate agents, it's just like the lending world. There are different levels of real estate professionals as well. And what I mean by that is real estate agents is in the real estate world, they have what they call a discount agent and a flat rate agent. Those are ones that are typically selling a lot of volume homes and they're usually just listing houses at a flat rate. Now, they don't typically work with a lot of buyers, but they can. It's not their priority. The second type of real estate agent out there are internet real estate agents. The biggest company I can give an example of that you might encounter is Redfin. Now, Redfin agents are salaried employees and they get bonuses, kind of like big banks is, a lot of these agents, unlike a full service real estate agent, they typically are agents that weren't typically able to build a big enough business for themselves. So they want to go work in an environment where they're basically being handed business and they get paid based on showings. And, I worked with countless agents. Some of them are amazing and some of them are not that good. So I'm just saying, be cognizant. The thing that a lot of people think is when they go onto an app, which is like Zillow, Redfin, and they click on the give me more information, they think they're actually calling the listing agent. What that is doing is it's actually rerouting to another agent that's typically buying leads and they are basically buying your information. So then when you call them to get information on the house, they put you in their database and then they're then prospecting you and trying to convert you into a paying client. The third type of real estate agent that's out there is a full service agent. Now, these agents are fully licensed. They typically are part of the National Associations of Realtors. That means that they are, there's about 3 million licensed agents in the country, and only 50% of them are part of NAR. So if you're part of NAR, National Associations of Realtors, then you have to follow the code of ethics. Now, the most important reason that is a big talking point is because when you are being represented by a real estate professional that's a part of NAR and they have to follow the code of ethics, this means that they have to disclose information to you. That means when you sign a contract and decide to work with them, that you are now a client, not just a customer. There's a lot of things that go into it. So if you're not a part of NAR and you're working with an agent that isn't part of NAR, then they don't have to follow any code of ethics. It's basically an ollie oxen free situation. So in my opinion, working with a full service agent that's part of NAR, in my opinion, is the best case scenario for most people out there. And if it's not for you, then it's not for you. But I'm just basing it based on my own experience. So the next thing I want to talk about is how do these people get paid? We've already discussed how the lenders get paid, but what about the real estate agent? A lot of people think, oh, is the agent going to charge me? Is the lender going to charge me? And some people are just fearful to reach out because they think if they reach out to a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, that these people are going to force them into buying a house. I'm going to tell you right now, all the agents I know have talked more people out of buying houses than actually buying houses. real estate has an 87% failure rate. So you have to think 87 out of 100 are probably desperate. And those are the people that what we say in the industry probably have commission breath. Now, if you're working with a real estate agent as a buyer, the way it works is the seller, the one that's selling the house, gets the profits from the home sale, right? Well, the listing agent, the one representing the seller, pre-negotiates the commission for the buyer's agent, which is the person that you would be working with, and themselves. So at closing, what happens is the seller then pays the listing agent. Well, it's all in title and escrow. The escrow company is handling the transaction. So the deal closes, your bank pays escrow into a fund, and that seller is already pre-negotiated with the listing agent how the buyer's agent's going to get paid and how themselves, the listing agent's going to get paid. So title, escrow, I keep saying title because it's a title company, and the escrow officers who handles that transaction, they then disperse the funds to the agents after closing or at closing. So before the deal is fully put to bed, the buyer's agent gets their portion, the listing agent gets their portion. And like I said, that comes off of the seller's profit. So let's say the seller is selling their house for 500,000, they owe 100,000, so they're going to get 400,000 profit. And let's say the commission is 6%, so 30K. So let's just say, for example, in this situation, the listing agent's getting 3% and the buyer's agent's getting 3%. 15,000 would go to the listing agent, 15,000 would go to the buyer's agent. And then those agents have to pay fees on top of that. So they're carrying errors and emissions insurance, they're paying their broker a certain percentage of that deal, and they've obviously been working for you for the last however so long without charging you a single dime. Maybe some of them do charge. No agents I know charge working with them, but they also have to pay their assistants. They have to pay their transaction coordinators. There's a lot of things that go into it. So when you see these agents making big commissions, you're like, man, these guys must be rich. Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, in my line of work, our profit margins are not what you might think they are. Well, if we get a $15,000 commission, my take on it might be $3,000 of that. So there's a lot of things that go into this. So that's how the real estate agent gets paid. And like I said, the lenders also don't get paid until closing either. So you might think to yourself, well, because you're going to see closing costs from the title company. So when you go under contract and get your deal accepted, the title company sends out a closing statement, and it says in there the title insurance costs. So that's insurance that you have to cover. So if that seller has a lien on the property and the deal closes, that means that when you have title insurance, that the creditors that are coming after that money can't come over after the new homeowner. So you'll see these fees. There's lender fees, there's title fees, and most mortgage brokers, their fees are very, very small. Typically where the bigger fees come into place are inside of the title company and the city, county, and state fees. Now, people always say, well, what are closing costs and how much do they cost? They're typically around 1% now, and 1% of the home value. So if it's a $500,000 home, you're thinking about $5,000. That would be 1% in closing cost. However, we talked about lenders charging different points, right? And some lenders out there say, oh, our rates are amazing. Well, what they don't tell you is that you're buying points down. So when the interest rates are high, like they are today, buying a point down could be 1.7% of that loan. So you're basically on that $500,000 house, you're paying $7,500 on a point. And it's crazy. And this is where a lot of these companies where you'll see is like, I'm buying a $500,000 house, I'm putting 3% down. So you're like, okay, I'm putting 15K down. And they're telling you at closing, you owe 30 grand. And some people think that's normal. And I'm like, no, that's not normal. That's crazy. And what they did is they basically hoodwinked you into using them as a lender. And I see it happen all the time. Clients come to us all the time. Hey, I'm pre-approved with Quicken Loans. Their rates were 1% better than what your person was offering. Well, let's compare apples to apples, look at the fee schedule, and we can really dive in and take a look and see. And if they are offering a better rate, then that's who you should work with. You should work with the person that's willing to provide you with the best service and the best rate at the end of the day, and the ones that we know can close the deal. Because if you have a tricky situation, they might not even want to work with you as a client. And that happens a lot too. So now that we got that out of the way, the next question that I get asked a lot is how much money down do you need? And you see this all over the place. Realistically, every situation is different. Every loan product is different. And if you're a first-time home buyer, there could be products out there from 0 to 3% to 5% down. Those are typically the most minimal standards that I see consistently across the board. If you're buying your second house, typically it has to be 5% minimum. And if you're buying a vacation home, that's typically minimum 10% down. And if you're buying an investment property, it's typically 15% minimum down. But the amount that you put down dictates typically whether or not you're going to carry mortgage insurance. So mortgage insurance is what the banks make you carry when you're not putting at least 20% loan to value down, and it insures the loan, not the house. That's different. That's homeowners insurance. In case you do not pay on your loan, then the bank, they're insured that they're going to get their money back based on mortgage insurance. Now, I want to tell you something, and this is why it's so important to start working with your lender in advance and get a game plan, is because the difference in mortgage insurance premiums can range very, very dramatically. I was just looking at this with a client, and they were able to get their credit score from 660 to 740. And what that did just in the mortgage insurance in the mortgage insurance world is it actually saved them almost $400 a month in mortgage insurance. So that is a massive difference between your payments, because I'm going to tell you right now is that with interest rates going up, for every 1% increase, it typically takes your mortgage monthly payment up $300. So think about that. Getting your interest or your credit score up from 700 to 740 could be the difference between a $70,000 valuation of a home, because every time the interest rate goes up 1%, also it decreases your buying power by anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000, which is wild. So you think about it. If anybody asks me what the most important thing to do when thinking about buying a home, number one is getting your credit in order. And the only way you can do that is by reaching out to a mortgage professional and actually working on a strategy. It doesn't matter if you're 1, 2, 4, 5 years out in advance. I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best things in the world to do, because as time goes on and rates go up, you lose buying power. But as rates go down, you increase buying power. So if you're consistently staying in the loop, a day and time might come along where your lender reaches out and says, hey, rates have dropped down to 2%. And guess what? You were able to buy a $300,000 house last year, but now rates have dropped 5% down to 2%. And now you can actually afford to buy a $500,000 house without your monthly mortgage payment going up 1 penny. It's not that they're trying to sell you a bigger and better house. They're just telling you what your affordability now just came into play. And here's the thing about banks that you need to understand with down payments and all that stuff. There's regulations. So what they look at is what your debt to income ratio is, and also how much you can afford on a monthly basis comfortably. Now, most lenders will ask you, how much do you want to pay a month? And then they start reverse engineering it from there. What we do is we say, how much are you comfortable paying a month? If you're like $2,000, awesome. Plug in $2,000. How much do you have down? 5% down, start plugging it in, and you start reverse engineering it from there. Nobody wants to shove their clients. Well, maybe there are people out there that want to shove their clients and stretch them to the limit. I know buying my first house, it was in 2010 when the market was crashed. But I remember going to get my first mortgage application submitted in 2005 when the market was very fraudulent. They gave me a pre-approval letter where my monthly mortgage was more than what my salary was. It was crazy, and I knew something was going on. So I just stood back, held tight, waited. I knew when there was fraudulent lending going on that there was a corrupted market. But now people are like, oh, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. Well, the market isn't corrupt anymore like it was back then. The reason that their interest or the prices have skyrocketed is due to inventory and low mortgage interest rates. So we'll see what happens in the future. Only time will tell. However, I want to talk to you. The next thing I want to talk about is what type of loans are out there, because there's a lot of just loans and some people don't know the difference. So the primary loans that you see out there are conventional loans, FHA loans, VA loans, jumbo loans, and USDA loans. So those are the 5 primary types of loans. And the thing that you must remember, or easy thing to remember, is conventional loans are privately funded loans, where FHA, USDA, and VA are all government funded loans. So there's typically tighter restrictions on the government loans versus the conventional loans. And the way you get into the conventional loan space is really, it's typically always based on credit score. So conventional loans typically also have lower interest rates. Now, the reason I didn't say where jumbo fit into that category is because jumbo could be on both sides of the fence. There's different jumbo products for both different types of borrowers. And once again, the only way you're going to find out is by reaching out to a lender. Now, a jumbo loan is for any loans where your borrowing limit surpasses the conventional loan limit. So right now, as we sit today, the conventional loan limit is almost $700,000. So if you took out a loan for 705,000 and put zero down, you're borrowing 705. That takes you into the jumbo category. Typically, interest rates are higher. Sometimes they are less, but most of the times they're higher. But if you were taking out a loan for 705 and you put 10% down, 75 down, now you get underneath that jumbo loan limit. So now you're back into conventional financing or FHA. Hopefully that all makes sense. All right, now that we got all that worked out, there's going to come a day and time when you're out there just hitting the streets and you're like, man, I want to go look at homes. Well, some people have questions about like what type of homes are there. So the primary types of homes out there in the world today are resale homes. These are homes that people have already lived in and now they're reselling it. This is the most standard type of home out there. Then there's new construction. New construction is what it is. It's new construction. The US is about 20 million homes behind schedule on new construction. And with everything going on in the real estate industry, after the market crashed in 08, what happened is a lot of builders got very, let's just say scared, or they got very cognizant about applying for building permits. Because what happens, and so you know, is that when a builder's under construction, they are under what they call a construction loan. So typically it's a very low interest rate loan, but the minute that they get their certificate of occupancy after the home is completed, they move into typically an interest only loan. So builders do not like overbuilding. They're very nervous in that space. And back when the market crashed in 08, there was already tons of inventory and they were also building like crazy. So that was a huge problem. But when you talk to builders this day and age, they're nervous. And honestly, the cost of building permits have skyrocketed. So there's also what they call condos, townhouses, manufactured homes. So the difference between, people will ask all the time, you know, and what they call townhouses, well, there's also attached homes. That's pretty much what they classify townhouses, which also incorporate patio homes, you know, duplexes, and any other types of homes that are actually attached to each other. So typically the biggest difference between a condo and a townhouse, and there's even condo associations out there with townhouses in them. They just look like townhouses, but it's actually a condo association. So living in a condo is really kind of like living in like an apartment lifestyle, in my opinion. You typically have really big homeowners association dues. They typically take care of the things like the sewer, trash, garbage, and some of them even cover the electricity, gas, water, pretty much everything, internet. But the thing is you don't own the land in a condo. So you're basically owning your little square space or however big the unit is. And it can be a pretty risky purchase, which is why FHA loans, government-backed loans, a lot of them don't lend on condos. So a lot of people look at condos and say, wow, this condo is super cheap, I want to buy it. Well, and then what they don't realize is that the homeowners association dues are like $800 to $1,200 a year. And now the reason that the dues might be expensive is they might be coming up on some assessments. Now, an assessment is where the building maybe needs a new roof coming up and everyone's going to have to pay an extra $7,000 over the course of the next 3 years. So they have to increase your association dues. So a lot of times what you'll see is on the listing sites, you'll see homeowners association dues and it'll say 400 and then it'll say /200. So you're like, well, what's that mean? Well, what that means is that 400 is the primary number, but the 200 is the secondary because they have an assessment. And here's the other thing about condos and associations like that is they might even be under what they call litigation. If a condo is under litigation or investigation, then they're not going to be able to get a loan approved on one of those units. And it's because they typically have faulty building material and that it's caused a lot of problems with the building. And let's just say they put siding up and all the siding goes bad. And now that company's gone out of business and the association is going after that associate or that builder and trying to sue them. Well, if they go out of business and they're bankrupt and there's no one there to carry the burden of weight, then who's to pay for it? This is typically when, litigations and assessments happen, and it sometimes can be a real bad situation. So the good news is when you are buying a condo, you have tons of time to review all the HOA docs that should be provided when you're buying a condo. I'm not a huge fan of condos. I'll just be honest with you. I think if you want to live the apartment lifestyle and you live into a brand new shiny, condo association, then it might be worth it. And especially if one's been like long standing and they're staying up with maintenance, because inside of those HOA docs, you also get their maintenance schedule, when everything's been replaced, what their budget looks like. And there's some that are in great working order, but there's also some that have a really bad history of litigation and assessments. And those are the ones that I'd recommend staying away from. Unfortunately, those are the ones that are typically pretty cheap. Well, there's something that a lot of people don't know, and there actually is assessment insurance. And what assessment insurance is if you do get an unknown or unlawful assessment, say the litigation happens and you are now hit with a $7,000 fee or $20,000 fee, and it was never planned, you can then exercise your assessment insurance and it'll cover that. Most insurance companies don't talk about this, but it's something that you should be looking into if you are living in a condo. The other type of home that I mentioned, which is worth noting, is a manufactured home. There's a lot of regulations around manufactured home lending as well as real estate agents working with them. Now, the reason why is because some of the manufactured homes are on rented spaces. They're in a manufactured park. And typically what you notice is a manufactured home that's listed at, $50,000, but it says the monthly HOA fee is $600, $800, $900 a month. That is typically in a leased park. Now, some real estate agents aren't allowed to sell manufactured homes in a leased park. So if you are working with an agent and you're looking to go this route, make sure you ask them, hey, are you a licensed agent that can sell a manufactured home in a leased park? The other option is buying a manufactured home on owned land. Now, sometimes there's good value in buying manufactured homes in owned land. The reason that most banks don't like loaning on manufactured homes is because their life expectancy is a lot less than a stick-built home. However, I have worked with manufactured home flippers, and I'll tell you right now, manufactured home flippers on owned land, there's some parks out there that it's all owned land. And these flippers I was working with were actually buying them for $20,000, $30,000 a piece, and they were remodeling them, spending about 40 grand, and we were flipping them for 350K. And it was an absolute money-making machine. But if you ever come into contact with one of those, make sure you're not telling any people about it, because with these people, I told them to keep their mouths shut, and then they told all the neighbors, and guess what happened? They lost all their mojo. All the neighbors started doing the exact same thing, and guess what? They were no longer able to do it. We did it with 3 of them, and to this day, I still see homes being flipped in that manufactured home park. So typically also with resale homes versus new construction is new homes are not going to build equity quite as fast as resale homes, especially if they're starting the development. If you get in at the beginning of the development, it's typically the best time. Some people are really scared to pull the trigger because they're like, I don't want to overpay. I'm going to tell you right now, getting in at the beginning is typically the best, but you have to know is that until that development is done, that's when you're going to start making your money, because you can't resell your new construction home more than what they're selling the new homes for. And that's what a lot of people try to do. And it's a fatal error. However, you buy a home that needs a little bit of work, a little bit of TLC, and it's a resale home, and you're able to build some equity pretty fast. Now, it really just depends what your lifestyle is and what you like. Some people don't like using things that have already previously been used by other people, and I totally understand that. I've been a type of person that I bought new construction and I bought resale. It doesn't really matter to me which one there are. I just love living in a comfortable home. So I know this is a lot of information so far, and I really hope you're enjoying it and finding it useful. Give me a like if you like what I'm saying. And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comment box. Or if you have any things that you want to tell me that is Jesse off of his rocker, he lost his marbles. I'm pretty good. I got some thick skin. And the other thing I want to note right now is that if you're looking at buying a house and you're like, I don't have access to the homeowner's docs, and you're like, I need to look at the HOA doc before I buy this home. Maybe you're buying an investment property, or maybe you're buying a house that you want to turn into an investment property, or it's a condo and they don't have access to the docs because some states don't require you to give the HOA docs until you have the house under contract or the condo under contract. And what you can do, this isn't a bulletproof thing, but what you can do is go to homewise.com and you can punch in the address and you can actually order the HOA docs in advance. It typically takes a couple hours to get them. You just pay for them. It'll say, what do you want? CC&Rs, bylaws, financials, ting, 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 check, check, check. Typically, if it's just CC&R and bylaws, it's pretty inexpensive. I'd say under $100. But if you want the full Monty resale package, you're probably going to pay, $300-400. It really all depends. But if you do it this way, I know I've actually bought houses in HOAs where I knew I wanted to turn them into rentals, and I wanted to make sure before I bought it or even put my offer in, I had all the information in hand. And the agent didn't have it, so I just bought the docs. It was $35, got all my information needed, and I was off to the races. That's really another thing that you need to understand is, do you want to live in a HOA or do you want to live in a non-HOA? and the HOA is a homeowners association. Now, typically you see online, everyone says, "Oh, this HOA is ran by Karen," and it's kind of a laughing joke. And I'll tell you right now that their HOAs are all different. I've lived in HOAs when they have no restrictions and they didn't care what you did. I've even lived in or not lived. I sold some houses in associations that have been dissolved, and some that had CC&Rs but no HOA. So, I know in some states, HOAs are extremely strict. Everything has to be painted a certain color. The fence has to be so high. You can't put light posts over the fence line. Every neighbor calls on each other. They're freaking, your dog's barking loud. Your lights were on too late. Music was up too loud and all that stuff. And then there's some HOAs where everyone's super chill. I have in certain states, people say, we're not going to live in an HOA. And I'm like, well, you don't really have a choice because it's 99% HOAs, but the HOAs here are way different than where you're coming from. If you're in California, Arizona, those HOAs are pretty strict. Other states, HOAs aren't so strict, but HOAs can also start to put in rules as you move along that get to go to vote. And sometimes it's not so favorable. For example, I'm living in an HOA right now who just decided out of the blue that they wanted to ban short-term rentals. So it went to vote and it passed. So now anybody that buys in the future cannot Airbnb their home. Now I think it's in a state that Airbnbs have no restrictions. So even though the state's unrestricted, the HOA put a restriction in, and this is what HOAs can do. So the other thing that you should know is that when a developer develops a community, is they dictate the HOAs for the first couple of years, and then they'll typically hand the HOA to a property management company. So a lot of new construction builders will have rules in there, such as, no purchasers can rent their house out for the first 2 years of ownership. I see a lot of people frustrated with those types of rules, and they're like, the builder should just sell the house, whether I'm turning it into an investment property or not. Well, they're trying to build, family-friendly communities that aren't full of a bunch of renters, which I think is, good for home values. So it's really up to them, and you want to review all of those HOA docs in very thorough order. I'd recommend even having an attorney review them if you're uncomfortable reviewing them. I've actually had people blame their agent for not reviewing the HOA docs. Well, it's not up to the agent to review the HOA docs, and it's up to you and your attorney. So pick and choose who you want to have review those docs. But I'll tell you right now, the worst thing ever is buying a house and then finding out you can't rent it out if you want to turn it into a rental down the road. Or some of them even have pet restrictions. No, you can't have more than 2 dogs over 90 pounds combined. Some of them don't even allow dogs. It's crazy. I sold a condo one time that didn't allow cats or dogs. Yes, I said it. They did not allow pets. And I actually had one of the offers that came in on the house was with a lady that had a disability where she couldn't see, and she needed a seeing eye dog, and she was ready to take him to court, and it was not a good situation. So let's talk about a couple of things now that we've discussed what type of homes are and whatnot. So a lot of people will drive around and see open houses. They'll see the sign out in front of the house. They'll want to see the house, so they call that line. Or they see a new construction development and they walk into that development. Now, here's where things can get tricky. Is you walk in there, the agent on duty is super nice, and they're getting your information, and they ask you, are you working with an agent? Now, at this point, maybe you've already been working with an agent, or maybe you're not. And let's say you're not. More than likely, that agent on those sites are working for the seller. Some agents at open houses or at new construction sites are just holding the houses open to try to get clients. This is how they generate business, right? Well, you have to remember, if you're actually wanting to write an offer on that house, every single one of those people work for the seller. They work for the seller. They do not work for the buyer. What happens is a lot of buyers think, well, if I'm going to write an offer on this house, I'm going to get a discount because I'm working with the person working with the seller. Not. You have to remember, what did I say at the beginning of this? I said the seller dictates the commission to the agent that's on site, the listing agent, and the buyer's agent. So the commissions are already pre-negotiated. So typically, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that seller is just going to now magically give you that discount as the buyer? Absolutely not. What they're going to do is they're going to put that money back into their own pocket. And here's the thing, dually represented clients, which is called dual agency. That means you're an agent representing both the buyer and the seller, is legal in most states. This is a legal thing. However, I do not believe that dual agency should be legal. And the reason why is because I do not believe that my client can get my best interest being by me representing both the buyer and the seller. I've had many buyers call me listing a home where they called me and said, Jesse, we want you to represent us because we know you can get us the best deal and you can give up some of your commissions. I tell all the sellers I work with before we go on the market, that if we get that situation happen, that we're going to pass the buyer over to one of the agents at the office. So that way the buyer can be fully represented. If the buyer is absolutely adamant that they want to work with me, I tell them straight up, the seller's already pre-negotiated the commissions. And if I do represent you, I'm just going to get paid twice. Or it's not really a benefit for you to work with me. So I highly suggest going and work with an agent that can fully represent you. This is the thing. It's like going to court. It's like going to court and you have three different options. You can either represent yourself, you can represent yourself with a court-appointed attorney, or three, you can hire a full service attorney. And there's different layers to that too. There's different levels. Not all agents are created equally, just like all attorneys aren't created equally. But the last thing you want to do is be represented by that seller's agent or even self-represented. I'm telling you right now, I know people that represent themselves all the time on the listing side. So they're for sell by owners and they end up losing way more money. There's so many statistical facts out there that sellers representing themselves 90% of the time get sued, and only 17% of the 10% that are successful actually end up selling their house for fair market value. It is freaking crazy to me. So for you to have the best situation happen is you want to be represented fully by a licensed agent that belongs to NAR working for you. Now, there might be a duly represented broker, which means because every single real estate agent has to have a managing broker unless they're the managing broker themselves. Now, I might be representing you as the buyer and another agent at my brokerage might be representing the seller. Now, our broker that reviews all of our files is going to be dual agent on that specific situation. However, we are both representing two different people. So in that situation, I would say you're safe because it happens quite a bit where inside of our office, me and another agent are representing two different parties on the same deal. And the same thing goes if we're representing two different buyers on the same transaction, we're putting in multiple offers. And that just means I'm representing buyer A, another agent in my office is representing buyer B, or I was representing two clients that wanted to put an offer on the same house. What I do is I always suggest to one of my clients that they go work with another agent in the office. And if you're working with me, typically I'm working with both buyers, so I know which one's in the stronger position. So I'm typically going to take the one that has the best chance at getting the house because I think I'm the better agent. However, if the agent is representing you and another client on the same house, then they have to disclose that to you. So let's just say I'm representing you and I'm representing another buyer and we're putting an offer on the same house. I have to notify both parties in writing that I'm representing another client on that house. So that has never happened with me. I've never written an offer on the same house with multiple buyers. And also a lot of buyers will go out and say, hey, can I write an offer on multiple houses and see which one they choose? So some states that's illegal. And a lot of states, it has to be disclosed when you write your offer. It really sucks when they put a deadline on Sunday and you see the house on Friday and there's two houses that you like. So typically in those scenarios, what you do is you write an offer on one house that you like the best and give them a 24-hour expiration time, even though that they say they're not going to review them until Sunday. Then they kick the offer back to you and then you put an offer on another house really quick, see if you can get that under contract. And then if the deadline comes and you're not under contract on either house, you can always withdraw your offer and then put an offer on another house unless you disclose it if it's legal. But if it's not legal, you're just going to have to play by the rules. But before you can put in an offer, you must know how houses are priced, because what we typically have is clients, buyers wanting to write lowball offers, and we have sellers wanting to overprice their house. The thing that real estate industry knows is that the longer a house sits on the market, the less money they get. The reason why is because as buyers, you have all of the information in the world at your fingertips. You see what the house says it's worth on Zillow. You see what it says it's worth on Redfin, and you're working with an agent that can go out and check comps, right? They can see what the active, pending, and solds are. Now, actives are not a formidable source of the valuation of the home. The only true formidable source of what a home is worth is based on what is recently sold in that area that is a comparable home, right? So a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home sells at $400,000, and you're looking at a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo that's listed at $400,000. You're just like asking yourself, like, wait, those typically aren't the same price. So the condo was basing their sales price based on that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family home. And that's not the way it works. That condo should have been priced based on another condo comp. And this is what happens with inexperienced agents is they overprice the homes. Or a piece of land that recently sold that I was looking at was priced and it had gotten appraisal by $350,000. Well, the house was a teardown, and the appraiser that appraised the house, it was an estate, had appraised the house based on the fact that against other single family 3-bedroom 2-bath homes. Well, the bare lot itself was worth over $550,000. So when they started getting offers, they were getting offers up to 550, and because of estate taxes, they were like, "Wow, wait a second, this house is going for more money than we thought." So they got it reappraised, and based on the single family home, it was actually worth 350. But based on raw land, because they could actually build 4 houses on that single lot, it was now worth substantially more. So you have to also know exactly what you're looking for. So when you go to list homes, what listing agents try to do is they want to get a full price offer in the first weekend. That is the ultimate goal. Fair market value, full price offer first weekend. That is the ultimate goal. Now, because like I said, the longer it sits on the market, the most unlikely it is going to get a full price offer. Now, there's actually a grid out there that tells us based on how long the house has been on the market and the activity, how low the house should be reduced in price. So if you're getting no showings, no offers, the house is way overpriced. If you're getting a couple showings but no offers, the house is 10% overpriced. If it's getting a lot of showings, no offer, 5% overpriced. If you're getting offers, it's priced right. But here's the other thing you have to know is inventory levels and days on market. So if they say that the inventory level is under 4 months of supply, so that means if they stopped listing houses and it was at 4 months, that means that based on the absorption rate, they would be out in 4 months out of inventory. Now, under 4 months is a seller's market, 4 to 6 is a balanced market, and then 6 months of inventory and above is what they call a buyer's market. We have not had a buyer's market in America since 2012. Right now, it looks that we're heading towards a balanced market, or you even might hear agents in your market saying that they are in a buyer's market, and that's because the inventory has crept up so high and absorption rate is so low that they might even be in a buyer's market right now. It's all geographical based. However, the other thing that you must also understand and identify is how long houses take to sell in specific areas and what is the list to close ratio. Because if you're talking luxury market, it might be a 4-month average wait time and they're selling houses at 99% of list. So they know that it's going to take 4 months to sell the house, and they know that they're going to get 99% of list price based on fair market value. So that's why it's so important to work with somebody that also understands analytical data, because they might be leading you down the wrong path. You might see a house sitting on the market for 3-4 months and be like, "Oh, I followed Jesse's advice. He said if it's sitting on the market for longer than 3 weeks and they haven't got any full price offers, it could be up to 10% overpriced." Well, that could be true, but it also might not be true based on the current market trends and price points. So that's why you have to be working with a professional that can give you that information. And I'll tell you what, 99% of the agents out there aren't going to give you that information. They're not going to know absorption rate. They're not going to know days on market. They're not going to know price points by area, things like that. And some markets don't even have that data, but most agents should be able to know how to use the MLS enough so that they can put the right offer in. And I'll tell you what, if it's the first weekend and the house is priced accurately, no one's going to give you that information. They're going to call the agent. They're going to say, "Do you have any offers in hand?" If the agent says yes, you're going to then you're going to start going to work, seeing how much over you're going to have to write your offer for. Now, I've heard buyers say this all the time. "I'm not going to spend that much on that house," or "that house is not worth it as much as they think it is." A house is only worth what a buyer is willing to pay. So when the market was crazy and they had multiple offers, and I heard a buyer say that, awesome, the house isn't for you. But if they're like, "This is the house I want, but I am not going to pay what they're asking," okay, cool. Then if they're getting multiple offers and you're not going to pay what they're asking, then we're just not going to write an offer, because it's not worth your time and it's not worth our time, because we already know this house is going over list price. And typically in hot markets, people are only working with buyers, or the people that are writing offers are only putting in offers that are fully qualified because it's so competitive. So you have to understand your environment. The house has been sitting on the market for a while compared to all the other houses that are priced right, and you know that you can get, somewhat of a discount. You have to remember also, everyone knows the price reduction strategy. So if the house has been on the market for 3 weeks, and you can only assume that maybe they're only going to adjust the price by 5%. So if it's $300,000, 10% is $30K, 5% is $15K. Now you're like, okay, maybe my offer, I should come in at 285, right? Or 280, let them counter offer us, all the things. There's so many different negotiation tactics. I'm a professional certified negotiator. I've gone through professional negotiation training. I know exactly somebody's position in a real estate transaction based on their offer and based on their counter offers, which is really cool. So it's something that I work with a lot with our clients and the agents that we work with. So also when you go to write your offer, there's a lot of things that have to do with the offer, not just price. During your offer, working with a professional agent that's fully licensed and part of NAR, they're going to follow their code of ethics. So they have to put down everything using the state forms. Some people want to use, their own forms, new builder contract forms, which new builder contract forms are a thing. But if you're like, I just want to write my offer on a napkin, it's probably not going to work. They're going to have to convert that information into a state form. So there's going to have timelines. They're going to have inspection timelines. They're going to talk about also the inspections you're going to do. They're going to talk about all the contingencies that are in place, the closing date, pre-approval form. What are you asking for? Is there any fixtures included? Are they including the washer, dryer, fridge? Are you asking for their blue rug in the entryway? There is a lot of things that go into writing an offer, but you need to be in a culpable mental state, which means you can't be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, and you have to be a pre-approved buyer. Typically, some people will want to put in an offer without a pre-approval letter. It's never going to get accepted. When you get your offer accepted, if your pre-approval letter is expired or you are putting in a cash offer, it says right there, you have to submit proof of funds. They might even request proof of funds of your down payment too. Every contract is bullet pointed in detailed order. And it's also something that you should be reviewing, with your, attorney. At the end of the day, you are responsible for that contract. And yes, working with a licensed real estate professional, there are specific things that go into place there. And I've never even had a client. I've been to 3 separate court cases with 1,000 transactions. And the way it works, and when you do work with a licensed agent and you're filling out the offer on state docs, is if you do end up in a situation where the buyer and seller aren't seeing eye to eye and they want to sue each other, whatever it may be, there's a process they have to go through. Typically, it's the brokers meet, try to work it out. That doesn't happen, then you have to go to mediation. If that doesn't happen, then you start going to court. And also a couple other things that happen along the way too is once a deal closes, sometimes the roof will start leaking, or water starts coming in, or something happens after the deal closes, and the client calls the real estate agent. Is once that deal closes, every party is fully lifted of all fiduciary responsibilities out of that contract. Now, the agent wants to help. Trust me, I've had a few clients where they've, a year goes by and they call me and they say, hey, they put in a septic pump in this house and now it's not working and the basement's flooded and I'm going to sue them. Or they were hiding something and now I'm having flash floods and I'm going to sue them. You need to help me. And it's like, we can't help you. We want to help you. So the course of action is you actually contact an attorney and then you take action there. Typically if it's under a certain price point, you go to small claims court. If it's over a certain price point, then you take them to regular court. The most controversial topics that come up in a transaction is going under contract and the buyer can't close the deal, or they don't approve of something that they found during the inspection process, and they want to terminate the transaction and they want their earnest money back and the seller doesn't want to give them their earnest money back, or the buyer can't close the deal because of lending contingencies. They lost their job and the seller's like, I want their money back. Well, in the contract, there's contingencies for lending. There's contingencies for almost everything. And you have a specific timeline to follow while you're going through that process to start removing contingencies. And every time you remove a contingency, it then gets rid of that option for you to cancel the contract and get your earnest money back. Your earnest money is your good faith deposit that then secures you into the loan, saying, hey, look, I'm moving forward with my offer. Here's 1% of the sales price as good faith money. If I end up terminating for wrongful doings, then you get that 1%. And it's really negotiable. Most states and most standard operating procedures is 1% of the sales price. I do have one state where they can go all the way up. They typically go up to 5%. The reason why is because if the seller or if the buyer can't close the deal, and they are negligent and the reason that they can't close, then the seller has a option to sue the buyer for up to 5% of the value of the home. So typically they have them put 5% into escrow in case something like that happens. I've never seen it ever exercised, but I wouldn't be surprised if in this current real estate inventory, I see people starting to try to do it. So quickly, and I know this is a lot of information, but I think it's really good for you to know. So once again, hit that like button if you like what you're hearing. Also, feel free to drop a comment down in the box. And I want to talk quickly about inspections because there's so many different inspections out there, but you should hire a professional inspector and your real estate agent will guide you along the way. But there's septic and sewer inspections. So if the house has a septic tank, you're going to get a septic inspection. If it has a sewer line, you're going to get a sewer inspection. And some people think, oh, house is brand new. I don't need an inspection. Yes, you need an inspection on a brand new house, and you need a sewer scope on a brand new house. Because I'm going to tell you right now, sewer lines are the first thing that go into new construction developments, and 25% of them are failed. I've sold countless new construction homes. I haven't worked for a developer, and we had broken sewer lines all the time. And it's something that they will have to fix. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't get it fixed, it's like $150, $250 add-on on most inspections. You don't get it fixed and it's discovered down the road, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I've seen sewer lines go from $5,000 up to $30,000. So there's lead-based paint inspections for houses that were built before 1978. You do have to fill out a lead-based form inspection. And, typically lead-based paint isn't bad unless you're chewing it and swallowing it. Or if you're sanding, there's sometimes asbestos inspections, termite inspections, oil tank inspections. The standard inspections typically includes mold, roof, anything that's visual, electrical panels, things like that. Specialty inspections, you can get people out there to inspect your well, water, timber, if there's timber deferral on there. You can get someone to come out and scope the property lines. And like we already mentioned before, HOA docs. You should really talk to your real estate agent just to say, hey, what type of inspection should we be inspecting to see? And typically, when you're under contract, you have the entire timeline to do your inspections. However, you typically have a restriction on timelines to ask for repairs and negotiate those things that you found. Now, here's the thing. If you're in a house and you see that it has damage, they are setting the price based on those visual inspections. Now, if you go to do your inspection and you're like, oh, now I'm going to ask for the floor to be replaced, even though you saw that the floor was in horrible condition, 99.9% of the time, the seller is going to say pack sand. They're going to say everything that you could see with your eyes are things that we're not willing to repair. Typically, the things that you can't see with your eyes, which are behind the walls, are things that you are going to ask for them to fix. Now, some agents say, oh, you should typically stick to 3. And what we talk about are what are the things that you want to ask that you're not willing to waver on. And let me tell you something, you are never married and locked into that house. So once we get all of our inspections done and we have our timelines in place, what we talk to our clients about is we say, look, there's 3 options here. You can either approve of all of these and we can move forward. All is good. 2, we can negotiate and see what happens and we can come to terms. Or 3, you can disapprove and we can walk away. It's 3 very simple solutions there. You are not locked into this house. All right. Let's say you want to go in and negotiate some inspections or some repairs based on your findings, and the seller says they're going to do it. The one thing that you're going to have is you're going to have a certain amount of time before that house closes to do a walkthrough, and you're going to want to make sure that they provide you with receipts, pictures, and you're going to want to verify. Because if you go to D-Day and it's day of closing and that seller has not done those repairs, guess what? It's going to be really hard when you write that check and that seller disappears to go after them and get them to fix those things. So let's say they don't do those repairs and you show up and you're like, well, we have a problem here. What you're going to need to do is you're going to get your agent to offer an extension of closing, or you could even file a termination and say, look, I'm not playing around here. And typically that motivates them. I don't really recommend going that route because typically you can get them motivated to close, to do the repairs, but I would never close on the house and then expect them to do the repairs. I've heard too many horror stories of sellers being like, oh, I promise I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they never do it. Or they do some crappy repairs. That's the other thing is you want licensed and bonded contractors. And most contracts state if it's like a specialty, such as like electrical, plumbing, that they need to have a licensed and bonded specialist to take care of those repairs. Handyman can fix handyman things. Sheetrock repairs, if there's little things, knickknack things that need to be fixed, if there's a little leak in the plumbing, that's up to you if you want a professional plumber to come out or a handyman. If it looks very, very simple that a handyman can fix it, then I say go ahead and let him do it. But make sure you do that walkthrough and make sure everything is in working order. So typically during that timeline of once you're under contract, your lender is working with you more than the agent is. The lender's asking you for docs. They're asking you for all these different things. They're asking you questions about why this happened on your credit, why that didn't happen on your credit. But if you do all that stuff beforehand, you don't have to worry about it. And it's a real smooth transaction to go from from your offer accepted to close. Now, here's the thing. If you're in the middle of your transaction, don't take out any new loans, don't buy a car, don't get the TJ Maxx credit card because it will jack up your credit. I had one instance where I had a client, they needed to save money for their earnest money and they were selling their house and their credit score was horrible. They worked super hard to get their credit up and they ended up getting their credit up to 740, which was awesome from low 600s. They put their house on the market, they got it under contract, and we got an offer accepted. And we were like, awesome, but it was like 90 days had passed since we did their pre-approval. The lender I was working with said, I'm gonna need to run their credit. I think something is off here. So we went and ran their credit, and their credit had actually gone worse from the first time we met them. And we were like, what happened? We're like, your credit was amazing. You guys fixed it, all the things. He said, once we got our credit and you told us that everything was good to go, we knew we were going to sell our house. So we stopped paying on all of our loans and all of our credit cards and all the things. Like, that's a problem? And he was like, and we're like, yes, you just defaulted on all your credit cards. And you know, lates on credit cards are a big point reducer on your credit score. But also, if you stop paying on your mortgage, you have 2 weeks, or I think it's two months until they actually file foreclosure on you. Or no, sorry, you can miss 2 payments until they basically file foreclosure filings, and it's 2 weeks until they actually start the process. So if you're late by your mortgage by 2 weeks, they start that process. 2 months, you go into default. So it can be very detrimental to your credit. So make sure you just keep everything in working order and follow the directions of your lender, because I've seen it happen more times than not where somebody will buy a car in the middle of their transaction. And sometimes the lender will say, yeah, you have an 800 credit score. It's not going to cause a problem, but you always want to verify that. So then the day they'll run your credit one more time before the day of closing, make sure that your credit's in still working order. And then the title company will set up a time for you to come in and sign all your docs. Your agent may come with you. They may not. If you're relocating from state to state, they can set up a mobile notary. If you need them to send a mobile notary to your home, they can do that, all those things. And now if you're asking, what can you do before you close in the home? I'm talking set up utilities, get the cable set up, all those things, change the locks. Well, guess what? I made another video, which we'll put right here in the video that you can click on and watch the things that you must do when you buy a house, because it's an amazing video. And the last thing that you're going to do once you get that final clear to close and they finalize all the docs, they fund and close the deal, you're signed off at the county, everything's good. Guess what's going to happen? Your agent's going to call you up. They're going to say, congratulations, you're now the new proud owner of a new home. They're going to give you the keys and you're going to celebrate. Now, the cool thing that I like is a lot of people think that their mortgage payment is due on the 1st of that month. But the one thing a lot of people don't know is typically your first mortgage payment isn't due on the 1st of the month that you close, or the upcoming month. It's due on the following month. So you basically get a free month of rent, which I think, or free month of mortgage, which I think is really cool. So I know this was a lot of information. I hope you absorbed it. I hope you're learning. I hope you're setting yourself on a clear path to success when buying your first home. And if you ever need a lender suggestion or a real estate suggestion, feel free to drop me a comment. You can even send me an email and I'll refer you to someone pretty great in your area. But that's not really what I'm here for. I'm here to educate the masses out there and teach them what it's like buying a real estate, so that way they can set themselves up for success in the future. And until next time, stay safe and we'll catch you later.